I want to look at three comments that have prompted. They've given me some thoughts this morning. The first by Magnum Nomina and Doom. I'm not quite sure how to pronounce the name. He says, or she says, if they don't get rid of him, the whole institution of the Oxford Union will delegitimize itself. This is the fellow who is the president-elect. And it's a sharp observation about the Oxford Union crisis, but it extends to something larger. Our organisations in Britain, political, cultural, academic, are fragile, not just because of scandal, but because of how scandal is handled. The union is a private members' club, long associated with the university, but not of the university itself. Yet its symbolism matters. If it tolerates misconduct, it casts a shadow not only on itself, but on Oxford, and by extension on the British tradition of free debate. The same lesson applies to Westminster. Perception corrodes authority just as swiftly as a failure of action. Ack Tolman develops the political thread. I think the issue is that there appears to be an effort to stain and besmirch the march. Why can we not want to lower immigration without being accused of racism? Here, the criticism is not of institutions, but of double standards. He highlights she highlights the different ways in which police, media, and politicians treat Palestine marches versus nationalist rallies. And the writer is correct. There is inconsistency. The Home Office defends one cause while condemning another. Yvette Cooper is cautious, and Mahmoud is cautious, but the disparity in language it feeds grievance. The problem is that Britain has had weak governments since Brexit, unable to provide a consistent moral compass, and the catalogue of indecision from Theresa May's paralysis through Johnson's chaos, Truss's brevity, Sunak's managerialism, and now Starmer's pragmatism has created a political climate where perception of bias outweighs any clarity of action. And then there's Richard Bailey, 3343, who puts the matter plainly. What can you expect from the masses when it is governed by such chaos and staggering inconsistencies? Of course, of what course then should the electorate take, or should we all just take the red pill and hope for the best? It's not cynicism, but despair. He asks the political question of the age. When leaders lack direction, how can the governed find hope? And his metaphor of the red pill, from Andrew Tate, speaks to our information-dominated world where conspiracy theories, populism, fatigue, words can appear more convincing than the halting actions of politicians. This brings me to a deeper point, the difference between words and actions. In a world dominated by information, we risk valuing sound more than substance, and the fathers of the church, the patristics, reminds us of this. John Chrysostom said, "Do not let your mouth be full of words, but your life empty of deeds." Maimonides, writing centuries later, argued that the highest form of charity was silent giving, giving in such a way that one's left hand didn't know what the right hand was doing. And Basil the Great, St. Basil, says, "Words are not sufficient for our salvation. It's life and conduct that gives proof of what we believe." These voices converge on a warning. Speech, no matter how eloquent, cannot replace integrity of action. So it doesn't matter whether Mandelson assured the Prime Minister that there was nothing fishy going on before he was appointed. Can he not be judged on his actions? Twice sacked. Britain today is caught precisely in this trap. Since Brexit, governments have spoken endlessly about sovereignty, control, global Britain, but have acted weakly, inconsistently, even timidly. They've scapegoated anybody who questions or who speaks out of turn. And in that context, maybe Tommy Robinson is one of those. The perception, as many feel, is of a nation adrift. That doesn't mean counterculture movements where the Palestine Action or the marches of Tommy Robinson automatically deserve legitimacy, but it does mean that the government has failed to provide clarity and purpose, leaving perception to fill the void. So what future for Britain? Unless a government can break the cycle of weak leadership since 2016, we risk living in what Chrysostom might call a marketplace of words without deeds. The electorate will grow more cynical, as Richard Bailey fears, or retreat behind tribal grievance, as Actolman observes. And institutions, from the Oxford Union to Westminster itself, will lose their moral authority, as Magnum warns. Our task, therefore, is not only to demand better words, which we should, but to insist upon better action. Clarity in law, consistency in policy, courage in leadership. That is the only antidote to this paralysis of perception.